Well, you know what time it is. Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving. Office closed up early. You're just settling in, thinking about how to set your lineups for a big Thursday sweat, and, of course, how to avoid your family.
Well, yeah, I mean, boy, you have come to the right place because we're doing that right now, and that beats, cleaning the house and all that fun stuff.
Wouldn't want any part of that right now. I'm Adam Kaufman. He's Tyler Sullivan. This is The Sweat. Thanks for finding us. Tomorrow, of course, big day, not only at home for you, but in the NFL. 3 games that you will try to stay awake through after crushing turkey all day long. So we are joined by a couple of guys that are definitely going to eat their weight in food. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Steve Buchanan, just to tell us all that we need to know. Steve, don't shake your head at me.
I'm more like the put up your Buke segment. That's my body, not what you're seeing here.
I see.
All right. Yeah, classic.
Sure.
The cartoon body is usually pretty accurate. It doesn't really change whatsoever.
No, mine's legendary.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yep, no problem. Bukes, we'll keep it with you here. It's not looking good for the Bears tomorrow in Detroit. Mitch Trubisky doubtful with an injury, which means it could be Chase Daniel's show. How does this impact Chicago's players? Are you still going to roster Tariq Cohen or Allen Robinson, or you can maybe even play Chase Daniel at 4,400?
Yeah, see, I mean, on a normal 10-game slate, I mean, you don't really give this much thought, but this is a 3-game slate, so you kind of have to think about it just a little bit. And look, this is a guy who hasn't started since 2014, faces a defense that's been fairly good against the pass. I mean, you got to think this is going to end up being a run-heavy game. I mean, they're not going to go out there and have him chuck the ball 30 times, and then you don't have to worry about the Lamar Jackson effect. Daniel's not going to go out there and rush the ball 27 times. I promise that it's not going to happen in this game for the Bears. But, like I said, it's a 3-game slate. If anything, I think this is just going to trickle down the ownership down to the Drew Brees, the Matt Ryans, the Dak Prescotts of this. But, in tournaments, I mean, you could take a look at Daniel, but, we really don't know what he's capable of here. So not a great spot, but because of the slate, got to think about it a little bit.
All right, Jeff, you feel that same way? Just because it's so small, you might have to go that way?
Yeah, I don't think I'd go with Chase Daniel, but I think the other pieces for the Bears are still in play. I'd look for Tariq Cohen to potentially get up to 10 targets in this game just because I think the Bears are going to try and keep it simple, which means lots of short passes to Cohen. And the one wide receiver I would still consider here is Taylor Gabriel. He's going to be matched up against Nevin Lawson. Look, the Detroit secondary has been just scorched the last 2 weeks. I mean, 5 passing touchdowns, to the wide receiver position. Few of those on the Bears, by the way. So I think Allen Robinson is a no-go. I don't really like that matchup with Darius Slay coming back. But Taylor Gabriel's in a spot at 3,700. I think he's still in play. I'd look for Cohen or Gabriel to potentially bust a big play and maybe be like the Bear to own this week, or tomorrow, I should say.
I chatted with Adam Levitan earlier for Levitan's Leverage, as we do each and every week, just the Thanksgiving slate, these games. He was very intrigued by Taylor Gabriel, so a guy that you want to think about. You got a couple people telling you, so pay attention. More positive QB news, guys. Ryan Tannehill set to return as a starter for the Dolphins in Indianapolis. He's missed 5 games, that shoulder injury. Only 5K, so Jeff, worth rostering?
No, not really. Not at all, really. I mean, look, I still think people are sleeping on the Colts defense here a little bit. They've been really solid at limiting the quarterback position over the last 4 or 5 games. 5 sacks last game, so their pass rush is starting to pick up too. And they're putting quarterbacks in position to pass a lot, but they're also creating a lot of turnovers. And then you have Tannehill coming off a pretty major injury with his first start. The Dolphins, who kind of like to slow things down, banged up a wide receiver. I just don't see enough upside here, personally. Maybe Steve has a better take, but I just don't see the upside at all here.
Bukes, where's Jay Cutler when you need him?
Yeah. I mean, the Dolphins beat reporters were like hyping him up. They're like, oh, yeah, Tannehill's on the passing, was chucking it down the field. Like, okay, 30 yards? I mean, come on. Let's calm down here. I mean, realistically, though, what's his floor in this matchup? 10 DK fantasy points? And I might even be a little bit generous here. And then you got to think about who do you pair him with? I don't know. You're not going to play him naked, so what are you doing here? I mean, it's just not even a consideration here. I mean, I get if you want to go cheap, but if you're going to go cheap, I mean, pay up $400 more and get Nick Mullins against the Buccaneers. I mean, hell, if AJ Green is back, $300 more, you get Andy Dalton. I like Andy Dalton a lot more when AJ Green is on the field. When he's not, I mean, we've seen what it's looked like over the past 2 weeks. So, if you want to go cheap, I get it, but this is just not the route to do it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Ryan Tannehill doesn't really excite me when they say he's back. He's going to be playing there.
No, especially naked.
Yeah, no,
pass on
especially
that.
naked. You pass on him there. All right.
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill, slightly better than Brock Osweiler.
Yes, ever so slightly. All right, we're still buzzing off that Rams-Chiefs game earlier in the week, and Rams head coach Sean McVay told reporters Todd Gurley didn't have his usual numbers in that Monday night game because of an ankle injury that slowed him down early. But McVay did say he expects Gurley to be fine. So I don't know. Do you fade him against the Lions next week after LA's bye, Steve?
I mean, look, the game against the Chiefs, what a massive, massive disappointment. I mean, if you made your showdown lineups and you looked at it and somebody said, who's going to break your lineup? The last guy you were going to pick was Todd Gurley. I mean, but truly, we just got to chalk it up to some bad luck and a bad week here. I mean, you don't get those type of games from him often, really even at all. The Lions are not strong. They're not strong defense against the run. Opposing running backs have at least 100 rushing yards against them 6 games already this season, allow an average of 42 receiving yards out of the backfield. I mean, this game just sets up so nicely for Gurley to bounce back in. He gets the bye week, gets to heal up. He should be all systems go when they face the Lions. It should be a good game for him.
You know, that's a good point. The bye week comes at an absolutely perfect time there, Jeff, right?
Yeah, it all depends about his health coming off the bye week. Unless we get some extra information here that it's like, oh, it's maybe a high ankle sprain or it's lingering. Those are 2 words you're going to want to look for. Then it's all systems go, like Steve said. Then I'd be targeting Gurley here massively and just hoping people are like, oh, man, Gurley busted last game. I can't roster him this week against Detroit. That's where you're hoping the scenario that plays out, because this is an absolute monster spot. I don't think the Rams are going to have to air it out nearly as much against Detroit because Detroit can't keep up. So great spot for Gurley. You just got to watch the injury report coming off the bye.
And you have to think, too, if it was that bad, they would have just taken him out. I mean, we saw Malcolm Brown out there take a few carries, but Gurley was in there all the way until the 4th. So if it was that bad, they would have just yanked him out of there, and they didn't. So I can't imagine it's going to be a huge issue.
Jeff, is that what DFS fans sound like to you?
Actually, yeah, some of them.
All right, guys, this has been fun. Stick around. We're going to talk more a little bit later on. More immediately, though, NBA is on the way. But first, DFS Edge with some small slate strategy, or as you may know it,
Do you go about game selection any different for small slates like the one coming up on Thursday? Yeah, so 3-game slate Thursday. I'll be playing smaller for sure. Like, I think the edges are just smaller as the size of a slate gets smaller, just because there are fewer decisions, right? Like, it's just harder for people to mess up on these small slates. Now, with that said, the action is so absurd on Thanksgiving because it's great. I mean, everyone wants to play, and with good reason. You know, you set your lineup, you watch football. Every play means a ton. Every play is on TV. So I think you extend your game selection a bit, particularly at lower stakes, because there's so much action. But, yeah, I don't know. I'll mostly be doing the same things. I probably won't post quite as big.
All right, we are back. Thank you. Welcome.
Hey, we're back here, getting ready for some turkey this weekend. And you know what? Before we hit the football, we're gonna do some NBA talk with RotoWire's Alex Barutha. And you know what? We're doing a little chase fade here, and we're focused on a couple of game spreads.
All right, so Alex, let's dive right in, because obviously the big game of the night we're all excited about, not Quail Man right there, is LeBron back in Cleveland tonight. Cavs fans, they're anything but thankful right now for the man who brought them a title. Might be a mutiny, quite frankly. I mean, they're pretty upset. Lakers 9.5-point favorites in this game. Chase or fade LA covering?
I think you can chase this. I mean, even aside from the LeBron narrative, I mean, the Cavs are just really bad.
They've had
not great.
They've had the 4th easiest schedule in the league, and they have 2 wins. Their point differential, they lose by an average of, I think, 8.5 points. The Lakers have won 5 of their past 6. They're clicking. We just saw what LeBron did to one of his other former teams in Miami, dropping 51 points. So I think you can chase this.
Yeah, they're close in there. They're in that Zion Williams sweepstakes there.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to bid for really any of those Duke guys that you can. Plus, the timing's great for J.R. Smith to just abandon ship and leave the team. He doesn't want to have to go against LeBron again.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, no, you don't want to really do that, especially when you just saw him do against the Miami Heat.
One of these.
Yeah.
The whole time.
The entire time.
Yeah.
All right, well, the biggest spread of the night comes courtesy of the Celtics, minus 14-point favorites over the struggling Knicks, losers of 6 straight. I mean, we talk about struggling teams there. Knicks right there with them. Chase, fade, the C's covering here.
I think you can fade this, actually. The Celtics just don't look right now. Their offense is playing really poorly. I believe recently on Zach Lowe's podcast, he mentioned that the Celtics' original starting 5 before they benched Hayward was averaging 90 points per 100 possessions, which is really, really bad. The Celtics' average margin of victory is 2.5 points. They've just been playing everybody close. And so maybe I'm fading this based more on my lack of faith in the Celtics at this point than how I feel about the Knicks, because we all know the Knicks have struggled this season, to say the least. They played Portland pretty well, but ultimately, I think they can keep this close enough, and I think it'll be closer than 14 points.
Yeah, these two teams played a month ago. Celtics won that one, but only by 2 points in New York. So obviously, it's
it would be a low point.
Yeah,
they
played tight
in this one.
And starters are out, by the way, for Boston. And to Alex's point about Gordon Hayward's benching, that happened in the previous game. Still coming off the bench, Aaron Baines once again is going to start. So that new starting five, old starting five, it continues to evolve. But don't look now. The Kings above 500, if you can believe it. It's miserable for Celtics fans that are watching that draft pick come the offseason. But for now, all good for Sacktown. 8.5-point dog, though, against the Jazz. So Kings cover, chase, or fade here, Alex?
I think the Kings can cover this. I mean, the Jazz and the Celtics kind of feel like they're in similar spots where these were teams that just excelled last season, especially towards the end of the year, and now they're struggling early. The young players and the Kings have been meshing really well. They've kind of been building to this point. And really, I don't understand why this line is where it is. I suppose people think the Jazz are due for a big win or something like that, but both of these teams have a similar point differential, a similar strength of schedule leading up to this point. I think the Kings can cover this one.
Should be interesting there. Now looking at the Warriors, too, we have Durant versus Westbrook, but there will be no Curry tonight when they face the Thunder, which is probably why the Dubs are just 1-point favorites. So would you chase or fade this Golden State cover?
I would pick the Thunder to win this game. Is essentially a pick 'em. After starting the year 0-4, the Thunder are 10-2, and they have the 6th-ranked defense in the league compared to the Warriors' 5th-ranked offense. But that 5th-ranked offense is when Draymond's available, a lot of those games, Curry's available. And honestly, the last good team that the Warriors have beaten was the Memphis Grizzlies, and that was back on November 5th. So the Warriors, I just don't have a ton of faith in them right now.
Well, it's not even just, as you mentioned, KD against Russ. It's KD against Draymond. It just happens to every single day. This is one of the things that we have to watch. So without Steph, who's leading Golden State, you think, Alex? I mean, if people, obviously, it's why they're tuning in. If they're looking for a good fantasy option beyond the spread, who's going to carry them? Who's going to get a lot of production?
Yeah, I think you just kind of have to look towards Kevin Durant. I mean, the issue is he's going to have a really tough matchup, and Paul George is going to be on him. That's not an easy cover, but they just don't have anybody else dynamic enough to do everything on the court that they need other than Kevin Durant.
Beautiful.
All
right. Well,
short,
we will. We'll get to a little bit more later on, Alex. Appreciate your time. But Francesa Friday early on a Wednesday. Thanksgiving takes you just absolutely do not want to miss. Always happy to chat with Mike Francesa, host of Mike's On WFAN in New York. Mike, first off, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and to everybody. Great holiday, great American holiday, and this is when the football goes into overdrive. I've always felt that between now and Championship Sunday is where it's football really high octane, wall-to-wall, college, NFL. So this is really when football hits peak performance.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to the football, too, but I know you've got takes on everything we had to talking about Pat Mahomes and the catch-up and all that on this show. So do me a favor, rank your top 5 Thanksgiving foods.
It's funny. I like turkey sandwiches after, and I'm particular about, I like leftovers. I really like turkey on rye bread or a roll with dressing, mayo, and cranberry. That's my sandwich, and that's afterwards. I love leftovers even more than I like regular turkey food.
Do you hear what the Lions are doing for their game against the Bears? People sitting in suites will be served Thanksgiving pizzas, okay, made with turkey, cranberry sauce, stuffing, and gravy, and to me that sounds disgusting.
I hate it. But what do we expect from a guy who works his team out in the snow when they don't have when they have indoor games for a month?
That's a great point. Yeah, Matt Patricia's still trying to figure it all out. All right, let's talk about that game. Well, not so much about that game. Mitchell Trubisky is unlikely to play as we talk right now, and the Thanksgiving pizza might be more interesting to talk about for that performance. Let's move to Dallas. Alex Smith is done for Washington. Can Colt McCoy keep the Skins afloat?
Well, he's done it before, as we know. So he can for a game. I don't think he can for a group of games. So I say for one game, yes. For the rest of the season, no. I think this will be a very emotional game for the Cowboys. I think it'll be a really big game for the Cowboys, and I think it'll be a big afternoon for Dallas. I think Dallas wins this game.
Well, the 9-1 Saints are hosting the Falcons. It seems like the only question here is how much is New Orleans going to win by, right?
Well, I think it's a little different than that. Here's the question. The Saints will score 40. The question is, do the Falcons score 13, 23, or 33? You can make your pick. So you either get 40-13, 40-23, 40-33. Take your pick. Saints win. They get 40. They get one of those three. So which one you want, 13, 23, or 33?
I'll take 33. Let's transition to basketball here because it's a huge one tonight. LeBron James making his return to Cleveland as a Laker. Ugly, as we know, when LeBron made his first visit back with the Heat. But the Cavs hadn't won yet at that point. So is this one going to be calmer?
No, this is going to be. It's going to be big. It's going to be emotional, but it's not much of a game. Cleveland is already figuring out that they might as well just tank it. Now, remember, you can't guarantee yourself the first pick, but they'd like to get themselves as close to that as they can and see if they can grab Williamson, who obviously is making a shambles in the college game already, and will be at Duke 1 year. But if you notice, since LeBron got unhappy, LeBron has been scoring.
Always nice to hear from the sports book.
Oh, you gotta love them.
I mean, you can't beat it. Well,
any time of year.
It is the holiday season, though. And you know what that means. It's around that time you got to figure out what you're going to drop the big bucks on and then where you can kind of save yourself some coin here.
Sure.
So in that spirit, we have our NHL expert to help us with that. NHL DFS expert Sean Newsham. And Sean, you know this. The name of the game is Splurge or Save here. Pretty self-explanatory, so let's get right to the top price center tonight. And Nathan MacKinnon, he's 8,100 against the Kings. So do you go with him? Do you go with Braden Point, who's at least had 5 DK points in 3 straight games and is only 7K? So which way do you go?
For me, I'd much rather look at Nathan MacKinnon. Braden Point's been on a little bit of a tear lately, but the thing is his consistency hasn't been what Nathan MacKinnon's has over the season. MacKinnon's in the 99th percentile in shot attempts. He's 3rd in the league in shots on goal overall. And just in general, he's in a better situation. LA is a pretty weak team overall. They give away quite a few high-danger chances. So I think for me, I would much rather spend up at Nathan MacKinnon.
You know, Bruins stud David Pastrnak, top shelf when it comes to wingers. We know that. He's been incredible. 17 goals, I believe, at this point so far, and he's 8,200 against the Red Wings. But you can't forget about the fact that Patrice Bergeron, his line mate, is out at least a month. Not going to be out there tonight. Pastrnak, is he the play, Sean, or should we ride the hot hand of Blake Coleman at 5,100 as he goes against Carey Price, who stinks right now?
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. It's definitely hurtful for Pastrnak to have Bergeron out. That's definitely something that will hinder him. However, he is a high-volume shooter, and the matchup is pretty good for him. So when you look at that situation, Coleman, you look through his stat line, and it's just a sort of hot streak that he's on. His minutes aren't there. His underlying stats don't match up to what he's been producing. So I'd much rather spend with Pastrnak tonight.
All right, well, it's a little bit tighter in terms of the price gap with defensemen, but Morgan Riley is the most expensive at the position. Do you roll with him at 6,900, Sean, or do you save yourself nearly $1,000 and go with Matt Dumba at 6K, and he's been on a 6 DK points in 4 straight games here?
Yeah, Matt Dumba's been on fire. This is definitely a spot where I would much rather take the savings. Dumba's been fantastic. He has 11 shots in the last 2 games. He has points in 4 straight. And you get a matchup against Ottawa, who just happens to be probably the worst team in the league. Ottawa's giving up the most Corsi against on the entire slate, meaning that they give up more shots against than any other team. So when you have Dumba with his minutes around 25, 26 minutes per game and his shot volume and block shot volume already, it just ends up being even greater due to the poor matchup that his opponent is. So I think Matt Dumba is definitely a spot you get some savings in.
Between the pipes, and I want to spend a little time here, Pekka Rinne, the most expensive netminder, 8,500 against the Blues, who just fired their head coach earlier this week. Is Rinne the play, or maybe Casey DeSmith, super cheap 7K going against the Stars?
Yeah, I think that this is a good spot to take another savings. I think Casey DeSmith is a reasonable price point. You look at the Vegas lines for both games, and they are expected to win about the same amount of the time. They're both, I believe, like -180 or 185. So it's very similar in terms of the Vegas projections. When you look at the shot total, I would expect to see a few more shots from Dallas. So I think it's a really solid spot to maybe save 1,500 and take to Smith, who just happens to be one of the cheaper goalies on the slate, despite being one of the bigger favorites.
Couple more goalie matchups to look at here with Toronto in Carolina, Sean. You got Frederik Andersen, who has won, his last, he's won 6 in a row, stopping 96% of the shots that he has faced. He's 8,200. On the other side of that matchup, you got Curtis McElhinney, and taking a little walk down narrative straight, a guy that's, obviously was waived earlier this season to begin the year by that same Toronto club. He might be looking for a little bit of revenge, and on top of that, he's played well of late.
Yeah, it's something to consider, especially for tournament options. So the one thing you're going to get with this Toronto game against Carolina is you're going to get a ton of shot on goal. Carolina is a team that generates a ton of shots already, and Toronto is a team that gives up a ton of shots due to their pace. So I think what you have here is you have a fantastic situation where you're going to have a pace game that's up and down the ice where there's going to be shots over and over on the goaltenders. So you can look at a spot like Curtis McElhinney, and maybe Toronto isn't as good of a shot due to the suppression from the Carolina team in terms of shots against. But McElhinney will face quite a few shots. Carolina has a decent chance to win the game. Carolina's ran rather poorly overall the whole season. No one's really going to play him. So I think in tournament situations, McElhinney makes a lot of sense.
Going back to Pekka Rinne for a second, just considering another goaltender, because, again, Rinne at 8,500, he's playing very well. 5 wins his last 7 games. He has a sub 1.5 goals against average. Guy's been lights out. But you also have Jake Allen, who is on the other side of that matchup. It's Nashville-St. Louis, and Allen has only allowed 3 goals the last 78 shots that he's faced. I know a lot of the time you wouldn't take him seriously in this situation, but at 6,800, being able to spend down almost $2,000, do you think about it?
I think if Casey DeSmith wasn't on the slate, you would be spending a little bit more time considering this. The thing is, when Casey DeSmith is a minus 185 favorite, it's very difficult to go into a situation and play a guy that's a massive dog in the situation. So I think if I was making the savings, I'd much rather go with Casey DeSmith. However, it's always a viable tournament option in situations where you have teams that are massive favorites. Generally means they're going to generate quite a few shots. And if you're fading that team in its entirety in tournaments, you can take the goaltender on the other side, and it's sort of a double dipper type of situation for you.
One last one, not so much a spend or save situation, or I look at, you start to look at some of the backup goaltender options, and David Rittich is a guy that middle tier again. He's not all the way down below 7K. He's 7,300 tonight, and is a guy it just seems like every time that he gets an opportunity for Calgary, he wins. He's at 4 in a row, 5 in a row at this point, and routinely stopping shots.
Yeah, Riddick has been strong whenever he gets an opportunity. It's a situation where a lot of people shy away from playing backup goaltenders in general. But over the course of the season, you'll find that most goaltenders and their backups, the differential in goals against isn't going to be massive over the course of a longer sample. The problem is you have one-night samples and people see a backup stepping in between the pipes, and they sort of want to avoid the situation. So I think anytime you see a backup goaltender, if he's in a reasonable matchup, I love playing them just due to the fact that their ownership is usually suppressed due to the fact that most people see a backup and just steer clear.
All right, Sean, let's calc back here and give me your slate-approved pick, the #1 guy that is your lock tonight.
So my slate-approved pick tonight sort of goes back with Matt Dumba when we were talking about Minnesota. The matchup is just fantastic, and I think Zach Parise is in a fantastic spot. So he's my slate-approved lock of the slate. I expect him to get a goal, maybe even 2 in that game. His underlying stats aren't fantastic, but he is one of the best players on Minnesota in terms of forward options, and he does have the highest shot volume in terms of their forwards. So when you look at the matchup, it's a fantastic spot. Ottawa gives up tons and tons of shots, and I think Zach Parise is in a fantastic opportunity tonight.
All right, Sean, great stuff. Appreciate you jumping on with us. We'll catch you again soon. Enjoy your holiday also. We got more NFL talk coming up next, but first, our own Brendan Glasheen hits on that LeBron narrative going back to Cleveland.
Hey, I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. LeBron James returns to Cleveland to face the Cavs for the first time since joining the Lakers. Got us thinking, how has the King fared in previous return games? He's got 2 of these under his belt. December 2nd, 2010, the decision year. James was back in the land as a member of the Miami Heat. He scored not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 38 points against his hometown squad. 38 was a season high at the time, the first 20 games, into the LeBron, Wade, Bosh Big Three era. Fast forward to 2014 when James rejoined the Cavaliers. LBJ was back in South Beach on Christmas Day. His buddy Dwayne Wade, though, outdueled him. James dropped 30, was just 10 of 18 at the free throw line, though. Wade scored 31 in the 10-point Miami win. How will LeBron fare in return game number 3? I'd say there's a solid chance he's even better than the first two. There's zero pressure. James did what he promised, deliver a championship to Cleveland. Highly doubt he gets booed. I'd say he gets cheered, worshipped, and loved. Plus, James coming off 51-point Sunday at, funny enough, Miami. 2 days of rest to gear up for tonight. LeBron, the most expensive he's been in the month of November, $11,600 on this 13-game main slate. He's worth every penny. It is indeed a LeBron night.
All right, we're back. So it's the football conversation, and with a Thanksgiving twist. Why not?
Yeah,
Tis
exactly.
the season. 3 games on the Thursday docket. DK Live's Steve Buchanan, Jeff Ulrich, both here to scan through the NFL price check. See what I did there, guys? Jeff, Dak Prescott, $5,100 against the Redskins, but he has been very hit or miss this year. Stop shaking your head, Bukes. Is he a good play at that amount? What do you think?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
You talking to me?
Yeah, talking to you. You in the race car jacket.
I couldn't get over your price check joke. So no, look,
strong, I know.
I don't mind going to Dak here. I really don't. I think this game actually has a little bit of sneaky, fantasy potential here. I mean, I think most people are going to be looking at Chase Daniel, maybe considering Matthew Stafford. I think Dallas, Washington, it's a division game. It's for the title. It's for essentially the division lead. Washington's coming in with nothing to lose. I like Dak in this spot. Washington really hasn't been that good defending the pass lately. 4 of the last 7 quarterbacks they faced got over 300 yards. You get the rushing upside with that with Dak. It's going to be jacked up at home at Thanksgiving. The rushing potential. I would rather go with him if you're not going to attack that New Orleans Atlanta game at quarterback. Dak would be my choice. So I am pretty high on him for the Thanksgiving slate.
Just general narrative street type stuff. This is a weird, funny day for me. I like the home teams on Thanksgiving. I like their performances. I like the motivation. I like the crowds. Damn it, Bukes, I like Dak.
And, just a quick note, when they asked me if I wanted to do the show today, I said yes, because I get out of the prep. I get away from the family. I don't need your corny jokes. I feel like I'm back with I could have just went back downstairs and heard the same thing. You know what I mean?
This is usually much nicer to me.
I'm cranky. I've been preparing all day. So anyways, let's talk about Dak Prescott. I mean, look, especially with Trubisky likely out, you're going to see some of that ownership go down to Prescott. I mean, he's going to give you some good savings. It's going to save you about $800 in the process. And then, of course, since Amari Cooper's arrived, he's averaging 17.7 DK fantasy points in those 3 games that Cooper has been there. And then, if we get around that number, $5,100, that's a pretty good investment for Prescott, who's scoring that amount of points right now. And the Redskins have really been struggling offensively, especially against opposing receivers. They've allowed the 5th most DK fantasy points in the league over the last 3 weeks. So I just feel like this is just another good spot. I mean, the Cowboys are surging right now. I mean, this is just another good spot for them to produce and actually get some points out there. So you have to like Prescott here.
Like you were saying, a big game there overall. I mean, this could be the division here in the NFC East there. But now let's look to that main game and that backfield for the Saints. Mark Ingram has been a beast for New Orleans the last 2 games. He's actually outscored Alvin Kamara in both of those, and he's about $2,000 cheaper than him in this one at $6,100. So, Bukes, is he a bargain against the Falcons at that price?
He's not a bargain. I mean, look, he was a lot more appealing back when he was in the $4K range. At that salary, you could justify paying for someone that's in essentially a 50-50 split. Now he's getting a little bit too expensive. I mean, he's the 3rd most expensive back on this slate. I mean, granted, it doesn't take much to be expensive on this slate, but it is what it is. I mean, to be fair, aside from Elliott, Kamara, and Ingram, though, who are you really going to play on this slate? Nobody really jumps out at you. I mean, Kerryon Johnson being out certainly kind of muddles that whole situation. But again, because of how this slate is set up, I feel like you end up almost just kind of falling into playing him because of the lack of options that you have here. And it's pretty unfortunate because, like I said, he's expensive now. When he was back in the 4K range, you could obviously, get him for a touchdown, and the production he gave you was huge, but it was such a discount that now that he's up at $6,100, 50-50. This could end up being a Kamara game. You just wasted 6,100. It's tough at this price point, but again, 3-game slate, you kind of fall into playing them.
Jeff, do you buy into that narrative as well?
I mean, look, I still think Kamara's got the much bigger upside in this spot, especially against Atlanta. But because it's Atlanta, giving up the most fantasy points to the running back position, I mean, coming off a short week, too, with Traquan Smith banged up, I think the Saints are just going to use both their running backs, and they're going to use them a lot in this game. And they're going to exploit the Falcons, who have a huge hole at defending the running back position. You play both. You play Kamara and Ingram because Steve alluded to it. Where else do you go? Yeah, Theo Riddick's okay, but there's no explosiveness. There's no big play upside. Jordan Howard, maybe he gets into the end zone a couple times, but same thing. I mean, he has to find the end zone to pay off. Tariq Cohen is the only other back with similar upside, in my opinion. His upside gets downgraded because now he's got Chase Daniels. So I think you play both these New Orleans back personally. Yeah, the price is a little bit disconcerting, but it's a 3-game slate. You got to go. You got to roster these guys this week. I really feel like the winning lineup for the big GVPs are going to have both New Orleans running backs in them.
I will say, though, I think Zenner is interesting because Johnson is out. Because, look, Theo doesn't carry the ball anymore. Theo hasn't carried the ball in, I think, 3 weeks now. So, LeGarrette Blount, I mean, I don't know if you saw what he did last week. He carried the ball 7 times. He had 1 yard on 7 carries. So, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine they go back to him after that type of performance. But I think Zenner is interesting because he's dirt cheap. He should get some carries in there. And this is not someone we've really seen because they haven't had the necessity. But Theo Riddick is not a running back anymore. He might be listed as one, but I mean, he's a receiver. He'll see some time out of the slot and whatnot. But I think Zenner's an interesting play this week. And I really don't think a lot of people are going to be on him. I don't know. What do you think, Jeff? Do you think he's interesting or?
No, absolutely. Look, Zach Zenner is the best running back on the roster this week. I mean, outside of Kerryon Johnson, he's the best running back that the Lions have. He's good all around, too. The question is, do the Lions give him the carries? And my question is, I don't know if he's going to get up in volume. And he's also got a terrible opponent. So that's why I say, he makes sense as a flex. Maybe you just bypass the Bears running backs and go to him and save money elsewhere. But I don't mind him. I still think you got to get. I still think the play is to play both New Orleans running backs.
Yeah. Should I keep hosting or should I kick it back to you guys? I know it's up to you.
Hey, you're doing our job for us. You're making our holiday easier. I like it.
To find out when it was our turn again. That's okay.
Well, see, this is what happens. I go down to the kitchen. I start taking over. It's not my job. Whatever. Sorry. Go ahead. You do a good job.
I like it. Not
bad.
Yeah,
I was going to give him all the time he wanted.
I was going to say, I was going to go cook the turkey, go hang out, have a couple of drinks, whatever.
I was feeling a little personally insulted. I just picked up LeGarrette Blount on the waiver wire. So.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Don't you check these things? What a terrible pickup.
Well, there weren't good options out there, I assure you. It was that or Frank Gore. Kenny Golladay had his best game of the season last week, 28 DK points, guys. Third highest price receiver on the small slate at 6,400. You playing him at that price against the Bears, Jeff?
I'm really torn on Golladay. I honestly haven't made a final decision. It worries me. This game worries me. I mean, obviously the pass defense of the Bears and just the pass rush really is going to negate some of the upside here for Golladay. It just is not a good matchup on paper. Yeah, he can overcome that. And yeah, he's going to get the targets. But, I mean, it's just 6,400 paying up for a guy who's obviously going to get a lot of attention with Marvin Jones almost certainly out at this point if he hasn't already been ruled out. It's a tough spot, and I think that you're probably better served just getting cheaper pieces of that Atlanta-New Orleans game, depending on how the injuries break down there. But he can overcome here, so I haven't completely ruled him out. He's a guy I'm going to want to get a little bit of exposure to at least, but I think the play is to go underweight on Kenny Golladay, spend up elsewhere.
Hughes, take it away, pal.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is obviously someone who dominated in targets last week with 14. But we've seen some guys who essentially are the only target and not succeed. I mean, hello, Tyler Boyd. Are you watching? This is what happened to you. I mean, and then I'm not thrilled with his matchup. I mean, he's going to see a decent amount of Kyle Fuller, which, doesn't exactly excite me for his chances there. But there's a lot of – but the problem is if you end up fading him like what Jeff is alluding to and he ends up going off, that's a lot of points you could be potentially making up for because there is no Marvin Jones. So really, who else are they going to be throwing to? Bruce Ellington is interesting. He's really cheap, so I might be on him. But really, it's just kind of Golladay, Ellington, and probably Riddick, who really they have options through the air. But the Bears have succeeded on this point. That's been one of their strong points is defending against the pass. So go ahead.
The game flow here worries me. Detroit's defense could go off in this spot, too, against Chase Daniels, right? And then if Chicago's defense starts scoring, then the offenses don't really get many fantasy points. So that's what worries me most about this game. Yeah, Golladay could overcome the matchup, but it's kind of setting up as an uglier game.
Yeah, and the price point is still it is a bit high. I mean, I can see because of the targets, but this is not somebody we've seen in this role predominantly at all this season. Just really the one game.
All right, guys, you don't have to think too far back to remember Allen Robinson completely owning the Lions secondary for 34 DK points a couple weeks ago. Do we expect an encore performance? I mean, we do have Chase Daniel potentially as his quarterback at 5,500 here, Bukes.
I mean, as of 6:35 p.m. Eastern time, the Bears are tournament-only plays at this point. You can't play him in cash because of Daniel potentially being under center. I mean, realistically, you'd like him in this spot. He's only 5,500. It's not a crazy amount to spend, and what he's already done against against the Lions offense, but you just feel like you can go other routes now. Like Amari Cooper feels a lot safer at just $200 more. I mean, you could even go down to $1,000 and take Mohamed Sanu against the Saints. Like that feels like a better option than Robinson at this point. We just don't know what we're going to get. Even if Trubisky does end up playing, if he's doubtful, how effective is he going to be? It just really, really muddies the whole situation. And on a 3-game slate, now we're kind of down to 2. It gets really muddy really fast. So I just don't think we can see a repeat performance here.
Jeff, it is crazy just how many injuries there are and then how small this slate is.
Yeah, I mean, look, and the other thing about Allen Robinson, when he went off against Detroit, Darius Slay wasn't in the lineup. So Darius Slay is going to be in the lineup this week. So that obviously is a pretty big factor too. I think the Chase Daniel thing, Allen Robinson is the one Bears player I would definitely cross off my list. Personally, you could take a shot with Taylor Gabriel. He's cheap. They use him on screens. They use him on handoffs. He could bust a big play. Allen Robinson's not that type of player. He needs a consistent quarterback out there, and he doesn't have the greatest matchup this week. So he's the one Bear I feel very comfortable crossing off my list personally.
All right, fellas, hang tight. We are going to do a little bit more with you in a bit. I've got some questions. I have some things I need answered. But first, Tears of Joy in the association that's coming up. And even before that, a look at the epic showdown between Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. If you get excited about two rich dudes deciding who's going to get $9 million that you won't. All right, I'm going to change my shirt. I'm Adam Kaufman, joined by Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler, and we're all just kind of counting the moments here until the match. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, and $9 million to the winner. So, guys, easy question here, maybe a tough answer, but who wins? Will it be close? Reed.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tiger here in the favorite. I know that's the easy way out, but this is also Jeff's boy. I think throughout the season, if you watch the shows earlier, Tiger was a favorite when he got used to essentially being back on tour. Strokes gained putting, strokes gained off the tee, or strokes gained fairways gained, all pointing upwards for Tiger towards the latter part of last season. So give me Tiger.
Jeff, you going to swing the other way?
Look, if this was any other situation, if this was like an in-season tournament, if this was a major or like the match play championship, yeah, I'd be taking Tiger. But it's not. It's an exhibition in Las Vegas at a course that was made by a casino mogul to host like these big stars. This is Phil Mickelson's venue. I don't care what you say. There's this money on the line. Everyone's, saying, oh, Tiger Woods, he's a huge fan. I think this is a great shot for Phil Mickelson to take down Tiger personally. I think that's what might happen. I mean, if Phil gets out in front, if he starts feeling confident, maybe he'll blow it at the end. Maybe he'll, do the whole Phil Mickelson tree routine. But I'm taking Phil in this match. I don't care. It's the contrarian pick, whatever. But I think Phil's going to win.
A couple of guys that definitely know their way around Vegas. Should be fun. Tiger and Phil. Reed, Jeff, thank you.
It's amazing how quickly you could change your shirt from back and forth.
Superman.
It's crazy. It is. You just jump into a telephone booth and just come right back. It's pretty wild.
Regular Clark Kent. Jeff did too.
Yeah, no, not bad.
Went all Hawaiian.
Both very, very talented there.
Thank you.
All right, 2 stars in the golfing world. This actually flows in quite nicely with the awesome slate of games in the NBA tonight. And let's talk about it here. Alex Barutha of RotoWire here. Let's talk about the top tier, and let's just go right for it. It's basically an all-star team with Greek Freak, LeBron, who's back in Cleveland, Westbrook against Durant, along with James Harden. So how do you even pick between these guys?
It's a really tough choice. I mean, if this were a normal night for LeBron James, I might fade him in favor of Russell Westbrook, who I think can really thrive against the Warriors here. But it's just really hard for me to not use this opportunity to play LeBron James. I mean, unless you think, Coach Larry Drew said he's going to start David Nwaba in hopes of slowing down LeBron James. So unless you think David Nwaba is the LeBron stopper that everybody's been looking for the past 16 years, I think you can get away with putting LeBron in your lineup in tier 1 here.
And how much is it, watching him against Miami just go absolutely insane? Does that really kind of lean you over to this even more?
It helps. I think I would have gone that way regardless if LeBron had a good or a bad game. But I mean, seeing him put up that kind of performance against Miami, even though Miami's been struggling a little bit this season, I mean, it just seems like he's out to just, I guess, maybe just have fun in these matchups where he's going back to his old teams.
Well, we'll find out soon enough, obviously. Tier 2 doesn't have quite the same star power, but some names. There's Blake Griffin, there's Andre Drummond, Nick Jokic, Damian Lillard, pardon me, Uncle Drew, LeBron's old teammate, Kyrie Irving. So who's the best matchup here, Alex?
I think you can go Andre Drummond, actually, and I think he'll have pretty low ownership in this game compared to some of the, I guess, more flashy names in this tier. I think there might be a perception that Clint Capella is a tough matchup for Drummond. That really hasn't been the case. He's played against Clint Capella 4 times in his career, and he's averaging 18 and 15 with a combined 3.5 steals and blocks. So, I mean, Capella doesn't slow Andre Drummond down at all. Drummond's been averaging 21 and 17 over the past 6 games. I mean, the guy's out of control. We know Houston likes to run up and down. There should be plenty of rebounds. Plenty of opportunities for Drummond to succeed.
And he's probably the lowest name guy out of those tier 2, so it feels like that could be a sneaky play there as well. No disrespect.
Yeah, the ever-evolving useless big in the NBA, the ones that can't shoot from distance.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes. All right, Alex, now let's go to tier 3 here. Who's catching your eye in that regard?
I have to say Devin Booker here. I mean, Devin Booker got the start at point guard last game and had like 13 assists. He's not starting at point guard this game. I really don't know what's going on in Phoenix. They're not winning games. I know that. But he's going, the Suns are going up against Chicago. We know Chicago plays essentially zero defense. This could be a situation where Devin Booker, who's coming off a great game, could just keep that going and against a team that may offer like no resistance. And we've seen the kind of upside that Devin Booker has before. I mean, he dropped, 70 points against the Celtics. Previously, I mean, not this year, but and he's just in a great spot compared to, I think, other guys in the slate. Like Lowry's an option because Kawhi's out, but there's some tough individual matchups, some slower paced games. I think I would lean Booker.
Well, we have some time. Let's explore the other tiers. Remember, there are 6 of them to choose from, and we are up through the 3rd tier, so tier 4. Simple math, right? Some of the guys that you could look at, there's Aldridge, who is, kind of an up-and-down option, always with San Antonio. Capella, who's intriguing. Tim Hardaway Jr., Steven Adams, Conley, D'Angelo Russell, Donovan Mitchell, who hasn't been what he was last year to this point. Who stands out?
I like Steven Adams or D'Angelo Russell. I just don't think the Warriors have the size to compete with Steven Adams. I think he could just get a ton of offensive rebounds. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. They're not going to have anybody to box him out, really. I mean, can you imagine Damian Jones or Kevon Looney seriously boxing out Steven Adams effectively? And with Karis LeVert now out in Brooklyn, we're seeing D'Angelo Russell take more of a ball handling role. I think the role a lot of people thought he was going to have coming into the season, especially those who play year-long fantasy. So I think both of those options, both those guys are in good positions to succeed in this tier.
All right, in tier 5 here, Alex, it's a good mix of bigs and kind of scorers. You have DeAndre Ayton, you have Jamal Murray, Andrew Wiggins, you have Luka Doncic.
The kids.
A couple of the kids there.
The young guys.
Who do you like out of this group? You do have DeAndre Jordan in this one, too, so there is an old guy.
I like Ayton here. I'm going to end up being very Suns heavy, I suppose, in this segment, just because of the matchup. But, I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. at center for the Bulls, he's a good defender. I just think that the way the pace of this game goes, that DeAndre Ayton is going to get a lot of touches. He's going to have a lot of opportunities for rebounds because, I mean, the Bulls don't make a lot of shots. I mean, Zach LaVine's a great scorer and everything, but everybody else on the team, not so much. So I think he's in a position tonight, along with plenty of other Suns players like Booker, and I'll probably mention Warren next, who should be in strong consideration for your lineup.
All right, final tier. You already alluded to it. TJ Warren's an option. But before you lean on another Sun, I want to at least give you some guys to consider that people can look at. De'Aaron Fox, Trae Young, CJ McCollum, Clay Thompson, Ricky Rubio, who I can never quit, Pascal Siakam. There's Brandon Ingram as well. Who do you like?
Well, I think, like I mentioned, TJ Warren, strong play. He's averaging basically 40 minutes a game and close to 40 DraftKings points in this recent stretch of games, as they just are trying to find anyone to score the basketball. But if you're not looking to put 3 Suns players in your lineups, I would strongly consider Pascal Siakam, who is going to have more of a handle of the offense with Kawhi Leonard out, and should still be someone who gets playing time if the Raptors blow out the Hawks, because that's very much on the table. And in that case, someone like Kyle Lowry may sit on the bench for a while. They may play a lot more Fred VanVleet, DeLon Wright, guys like that. But I imagine they'll keep Siakam in the game regardless of the game script. So if you're not looking to stack a bunch of Suns players, especially once you get to tier 6, I think Siakam makes for a good call there.
All right, so the big takeaway, stay away from the Suns whatsoever, right? That's
don't
basically,
go near the Suns.
Don't go near the Suns. No, actually, we actually like them a lot. All right, Alex, thanks a bunch. We're going to get back to our NFL conversation with our experts in just a moment, but we kick off the NFL talk with our continued conversation with Andy Hart of Patriots Football Weekly.
Let's welcome in Andy Hart into the sweat. Andy covers the New England Patriots, assistant editor for Patriots Football Weekly and Patriots.com. He's all over it in Foxborough. Andy, thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Want to get your take on the contributions of some individual players so far this season, starting, of course, with the quarterback, Tom Brady. It seems like anytime Tom has a down game, the whispers of, is this the end for Tom? That pops up, but always seems to bounce back right away. Has the 2018 Tom Brady approached this season any differently from what you've seen so far this year?
Not since training camp started. Now, obviously, one of the talking points or big storylines of the offseason was Brady staying away from voluntary workouts, you know, the OTAs and the passing camps and the various things that take place in April and May. But he did take part in everything that was mandatory, June mini camp and then training camp. And since then, I think he's dialed in. So he's been trying to find that, you know, work-home balance, his family balance. But the reality is it hasn't been one of his better seasons. And, you know, a lot of that, I think, has to do with the guys around him and the moving parts. And he's talked a little bit about it. You know, Gronk being in and out of the lineup, Sony Michel in and out of the lineup, being without Julian Edelman to start the year. Josh Gordon wasn't on the team to start the year. So I think they're trying to put together an efficient passing game and an efficient offense kind of on the fly here. And it's been at times a struggle. And then there's been other times when they've had most of those guys out there when Sony Michel's running well, that it's looked really good and they, you know, roll out of bed and score 38 points. So it's a work in progress. And right now, statistically, Brady is middle of the pack in terms of NFL quarterbacks in passer rating and completion percentage and those things. But I think he's dialed in. He's talked about it already this week, dialed in on learning from the first half of the season and coming down the home stretch here, trying to be the best offense they can be. And I think he has confidence in himself and this offense that it can be an elite passing attack and scoring offense.
You mentioned Sony Michel. What are your impressions of him so far? I know he's been banged up with injuries, but seems to have the lead role locked up when healthy.
Yeah, no question. When he's been healthy, there was a 3-week stretch there where he was basically 3 straight 100-yard games. And that was what I was talking about earlier. You know, the fact that's when they were putting up their great statistics and points. They were a 38-plus point team for those games. And I think the balancing out of the offense was a big reason for that. And Sony Michel does look like not only he can be the lead back and the workhorse, but I think they want to eventually work him into the passing game and create sort of a 3-down back role for him. Dion Lewis did that down the stretch last year for New England. And I think this offense sometimes is at its best when they get rid of the predictability that sometimes comes with early down back of a guy like LeGarrette Blount or even Sony Michel. James White's the passing back, so when he comes in, you're not going to run the ball. If you can get Sony Michel to the point where A, he's healthy on the field all the time, and then B, on the field for 3 downs, I think he could potentially take this offense to the next level.
How do you even put into words the meaning of what James White has been to this offense this year? Arguably, maybe not even arguably, he is the team MVP right now.
Yeah, no argument here. He was the MVP over the first half or a little more than half of the season. You're talking about a running back who has 66 catches, not only leads the Patriots, is, you know, in the top 10 in the NFL and is on pace to set a record for receptions by a running back, taking Matt Forte's record with the Bears a few years back. So he's putting up historic numbers, and he's really been the one consistent go-to guy. You know, we talked all about, the guys in and out of the lineup, whether it's injuries or being added to the roster at various points. James White has been out there each and every week, and he has been the workhorse. He has been the go-to guy for Tom Brady. When things start to break down, it's go to James White. And he's really done this, the last few years. Last year, he was off to a great start. I think he had 43 catches the first half of the season. Got a little dinged up with an ankle injury, so the production faded. If he can stay healthy, he's putting up remarkable numbers. And, as you said, he's been the MVP. He's been the guy they've leaned on, and they're going to continue to need to lean on him down the stretch.
Julian Edelman missed all of last season. Is he back or at least close to full speed now with the Patriots entering Week 12?
I think it's pretty close. I've heard some whispers, he's not quite as quick as he was before the torn ACL. But I see a guy who's making plays. He's, a volume receiver for them, catching a lot of passes. Had he not missed the first month of the season to a suspension, he'd be on pace for a 100-catch season. And that's what he is. That's what that role is in the slot for this Patriots offense. There's sort of the expectation of whether it's Wes Welker or Danny Amendola or Julian Edelman, you're going to be a guy that's going to catch, 6 to 10 passes a game. And he has been that. Now, I'm sure there's room for growth, a little bit, run after catch and make some plays in terms of moving the chains. But he is a reliable weapon for Tom Brady. And I think, they'll lean on him even more, into December and January.
Let's shift to the defense. New England has had a bend but don't break style of defense for most of the Bill Belichick era, and this season no different. Who is the key cog to the Patriots defense?
I think it's their number one cornerback, Stephon Gilmore. And it's funny, his worst games this year are their worst games. The losses they have in Jacksonville, Detroit, and Tennessee are games where Gilmore didn't play all that well, gave up touchdowns, gave up too many catches to opposing receivers, Corey Davis for the Titans being the latest. And when he's on, he just gives that ability to sort of take away half the field, and opponents don't even throw in his direction. Now, on the road, some of these teams have targeted him, and I'm not sure exactly what they saw on tape to do that. But, down the stretch a year ago into the Super Bowl, Stephon Gilmore was the Patriots' best defensive player, even in the Super Bowl. When they couldn't stop anybody, he was the one defensive back who had a pretty good game. And I think we've seen that in flashes this year. He needs to do the same thing coming down the stretch to this season, because I do think that allows other guys to breathe a little easier in the back end, takes a little pressure off the pass rush when Gilmore is at his best.
Andy Hart of Patriots Football Weekly and Patriots.com. Follow his coverage there. Also catch him on Twitter at Jumbo Hart. Andy, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, Koff, over under 3.5 helpings for our friends here, Bukes and Jeff, to wolf down on Thanksgiving.
Oh boy, these two, they can definitely pack it away if their kids let them near the food. That's something to consider. But I'm going to pound the over. I think it's probably about the easiest
Seems fair enough.
of all time. We do, of course, have some more tricky over-under.
Yeah, that one seemed a little too much of a
that
layup.
one was easy. I think these guys are here, right? NFL tomorrow, a few games on the docket. Jeff, by the way, it's good to see that you're looking well, looking healthy. I've been concerned about you lately. First up, 12:30 Eastern, the game Bears and Lions. 2 weeks ago, they dropped a combined 56 points. This week, the line set at 44. So, Bukes, start with you, pal. How you feeling about this line?
You got to explain that to Jeff later. I totally forgot about that. I'm going to have to explain that to him. But, I mean, what an ugly game. I mean, can you imagine starting off Thanksgiving and this is the game you're going in with Stafford and Daniel here? Oh, boy. That really makes me want to start watching football. But, look, you got to go under here. I mean, Stafford hasn't thrown more than 2 touchdowns in a game and all but 1 this season. The run game is a bit dicey, and then you got the Chase Daniel effect here going on with the Bears. I mean, there's just not a lot to like about this game here. So I feel like you have to go under just because, I don't know, maybe drink every time there's a turnover. That'll get your day started off well. I mean, that's just what this kind of game feels like at this point. So I got to go under here.
Over or under, Jeff?
I don't know. Maybe it's like the holiday and I'm feeling more optimistic than usual. I'm going to go over. And here's a couple reasons why.
God.
I don't know how quarterback centric the Bears offense really is. I mean, they can score on special teams. They can score with their running back position. Like I said, they do these fancy jet sweeps and they're very effective with it. So I still think they can put up 24, maybe 28 points in this matchup. And then all you need from Detroit is 14-20. And again, they're the home team here. They're coming off, obviously they put up 22 against the Bears last time. So 44 isn't that big a number. I think the Bears are still going to be an effective offense, and that's what it comes down to. I don't love this bet, by the way, but I would take the over. If I had it.
All right, Bukes, you seem a little amped up there. You want to respond or no?
Nope.
All right, fair enough. Well, I mean, the oh my God right there seemed like he was ready to rear and go here.
I mean, he made. I will say he did make some fair points. Okay, so on the surface when he said over, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but he did make some fair points.
Jeff does that from time to time. He says something that seems stupid, and then he surprises you with his rationale.
Yeah, he's alive.
It's amazing what logic can do there.
Every squirrel finds a nut.
Yeah, there you go. All right, middle game of the day, 4:30 Eastern is Redskins Cowboys. Line set pretty low at 40.5. Makes sense with Colt McCoy under center. It's kind of the same thing we were talking about earlier with the Bears too for Washington. Jeff, where do we stand on this one?
Yeah, again, I mean, I'm probably being more optimistic than people think, but I'm going to take the over. I looked at this similar as the Detroit-Chicago game, but now you have a lower point total. I think Dallas at home can get their offense going a little bit, and if that pass game clicks early, I think 30 points is very easy for them to get to. Again, you mix in maybe a possible defensive score or something like that, or Colt McCoy turns the ball over near the goal line. All of a sudden, Dallas offense is rolling. Then you need 12 points, 14 points from Washington, which is pretty doable. So I think you're going to. I think this game could see one of these teams put up a fairly big point total, and I think getting to 40 is very doable here. I do like Dallas to put up some points. So with that said, I mean, I personally really like this for the over.
Bukes, you're nodding head in agreement?
Yeah, I mean, 40 is a low. 40.5 is a really low point total when you think about it. I mean, look, McCoy was okay when he came into the game. 6 for 12, 54 yards and a touchdown. But the problem is that the Cowboys have been really good defensively, and the Washington offensive line, I mean, we've said it week in, week out, it's just a mess right now. They have so many injuries. They've just been decimated in that realm. But the problem is with the Redskins, they just don't have any viable weapons at this point. I mean, when you think about who McCoy has to throw to, no one really jumps out. I mean, I don't know, Jordan Reed, I guess, but he's been such a disappointment. But like Jeff said, the Cowboys could easily put up, 25, 30 points in this matchup. And if they're at that mark, the Redskins really don't have to do much to do it. I mean, honestly, 3 field goals and they're right in the range for what you'd expect if the Cowboys are putting up 30. So I think it's definitely doable. It's a little too low. I think 44, 45 might be one that you'd have to really think about, but I think 40.5 is just too low.
And I think Colt McCoy coming in, again, Washington doesn't have much to lose. So if they get behind in this game, Colt McCoy can run a little bit. He'll be able to move the ball a little bit on his own. I agree. They're lacking weapons. Chris Thompson is out again, which really hurts. But Jordan Reed is in a good matchup. I mean, Dallas has not defended the tight end position well at all. So he could easily have a big game here, be that catalyst for them to get to maybe 17 points.
Late game between the Saints and Falcons maybe should have the most potential for offense. Might mostly come from the New Orleans side, but the line for this one, 56.5 points, guys. Which side of that line do you fall on, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm probably going against, what most people are thinking here. I'm going to go under. These two teams have been Jekyll or Hyde. It seems like either they go for 80 points or they do 30. I mean, the 2 games they played last year, they combined for 36 and 37 points. So that tells you that it's not necessarily a guarantee here that we see 80 points. I think, too, coming off a short week, Traquan Smith is banged up. I think you're going to see New Orleans try to control the game more on the ground. Could slow the pace down just a little bit. And Atlanta's not been good. They have not been scoring points over the last 3 weeks. Almost lost to the Giants. Obviously lost last week. This is just not really an offense that is clicking. So I think you'll see, I would lean towards the under. Obviously, it's the Saints at home. They could put up 60 points. And that's not hyperbole on their own. But I'm going to take the under here. I think I'm just leaning towards that a little bit for me.
Bukes, you sounded repulsed.
I mean, I can't even think right now. I mean, putting the Saints in the under, it just sounds crazy right now, right? I mean, you have to go over. I mean, the answer is over. I mean, this is such a good bounce back spot for the Falcons, too, as well. And they're averaging about 24 points in the last 3 games, and they're going to be the ones that dictate if this goes over or under, because if they start clicking again on offense, this is an easy over. But the thing is that all the receivers in this game are in great matchups, like Mohamed Sanu against P.J. Williams, super exploitable. Julio Jones against Marshawn Lattimore. I'll take Jones on that one. Even Calvin Ridley versus Eli Apple. Apple has not been that good since he's come to the Saints. He had a good couple games, but he's already been scored on twice. He's averaging about 65 yards per game at this point since coming over to the Saints. He's been better the last 2 weeks, but that was against the Bengals and the Eagles, who just can't get anything done offensively at this point. I just feel like this is going to be such a high-powered offense versus a high-powered offense. You have to go in the over in that one. So, good luck to that bet on that one, Jeff.
I feel like I'm either going to go 3-0 or 0-3. I mean, I really do. I feel like I'm either like right and I'm going against
2-1. I'll give you 2-1.
I don't know. I feel like it's all or nothing here.
Now who's being generous?
They're bold picks.
I was going to say, it's the holiday season. Feeling pretty optimistic on this one. All right, guys, finally, your slate-approved picks for this slate. Bukes, go ahead.
Very quickly.
I'm honestly, I'm going to go with Zeke Elliott. I think it's just going to be a good spot for him.
All right, Jeff?
I'm going to go with Jordan Reed. Like I said, this is a really good matchup for him against the Dallas defense. And again, Washington is going to have to move the ball somewhat. I think Roy Reed is easily in the most exploitable matchup. So I'll go with Jordan Reed.
All right, Bukes, Jeff, happy Thanksgiving, and the same to all of you. Enjoy. We will talk to you again, not tomorrow, not Friday, Sunday. Join us on The Sweat.